Did any of you go to college and feel like you missed out on the experience generally? Like you wasted your years at college? Or maybe if you didn't go to college, you've always felt like you wasted your 18 to 21 kind of age range. That age where you were told it would be just a time of partying, the time when you met women for the most, like outside of school. So this is like the first time in your life that you'd be like dating as an adult properly, and then you'd be like, having wild times, wild sex with lots of hot girls. But instead of that, you spent your time watching other guys do that while you couldn't figure out how to get your life started. You feel like you didn't make it socially or romantically at college like you thought you were going to. That was my experience as well. I'm glad we can bond over this shared experience of how shit college was. So I'm going to talk about my experience at college, and I'm also going to talk about like the two big lessons that I realized from my college experience. And maybe if you're watching this and you're someone who's like a really young dude, like 17, 18, and you're going to college, maybe you can get something out of this before you go there and you can have the time that you're looking for. So I want to tell my story and I want to give you my two big lessons. We'll start with the overview. So I went to college on an easy as fuck degree. Yeah, I did a history degree, and there is nothing I can say about a history degree to convince you that it's hard, because it really isn't. If you wanted to get like the top grades, yeah, you could put a whole lot of effort into it. You basically have to act like you're going into academia, do really interesting research, or you can skate by, not go to any lectures, barely go to any of the seminars, and still get out with like a passing or decent grade, which is what I did. I got a 2-1, which is like the grade which says you're smart, but you didn't try very hard, basically. And I took history on purpose because I wanted to focus more on the social side. I wanted to focus more on being away from my family for the first time and living out of home. And I wanted to focus on, kickstarting my life in dating and social stuff. Being successful in those areas was more important to me than my academic pursuit. And let's have a look at how that went. So I lost my virginity at 22, and I was at university from 18 to 21. As you can see, any basic level of deduction will tell you that I did not lose my virginity at university. I obviously didn't lose my virginity before university as well. At school, I didn't really try very hard at school. I feel like I wasn't emotionally mature enough. I wasn't ready, and I didn't really have any plan towards girls at school. But what I banked on was that everyone gets laid at college. It's just like that stupid fucking thing in Superbad, or like in the movies where they're like, yeah, everyone gets laid at college. You have to worry about it. My like idyllic brain was like, oh, you'll meet a girl and form a relationship. That was kind of the idea, and like you wouldn't even really have to try. Breaking down the years I was at uni, so it was like year 1, year 2, year 3. Year 1 was an absolute fucking unmitigated disaster. I had serious depression and mental health issues. I had a series of panic attacks that went on through the later stage of the year. I didn't make friends. I spent most of my time in my room hiding from people. The only times I really went out was in going to club nights with people I didn't really like that much. I've spoken about this on a previous video where Andy and I were talking about why shy guys aren't necessarily introverted. And my first year was a case of just, I went to make friends and I didn't manage to do it. And so being alone and being like living with people you don't like for the whole first year, it was a real come down. The guys I lived with wrote me a letter saying they didn't want to live with me anymore 6 months in. Basically, we had to make a decision on where we were going to live in the second year, and they decided to write me a letter saying, hey, it's been a nightmare living with you. We don't want to move forward with you next year. So this gives you a real idea of what happened in my first year. Socially, absolute disaster. Arguably, it went a little bit better with girls because I had at least one girl in that year who something could have happened with. But I was too shit scared to make a move and do anything. And that's going to get even more outrageous when you hear the situation that I had. So I met this girl. She was friends of someone who I was living with. One of the guys in my flat who I actually got along with fairly well. And he wasn't part of the group that didn't want to live with me because he was moving away to go to China for a year. And so he and me were like the only real like friends in that. He was like my only real friend in that flat. And he introduced me to this girl in another flat who I would meet occasionally on nights out, like loads, and like she would come up and say hello to me and talk to me. And at some point during the year, she ended up in our flat after a night out, and I'd been on a night out as well. And she just basically followed me to my room, and then she kind of sat in my bed talking to me, and then she decided to basically have a nap in my bed, like as in she would just kind of lie there, and she basically didn't leave. She was talking to me and she was like, I'm not leaving. And then she basically napped in my bed. And I spent the next 5 hours on my computer, not joining her in bed. This was me avoiding having sex, avoiding getting with a girl who was basically just being like, hey, I'm not leaving your room. Do you want to come and join? And like, no, for some reason, I decided I was too scared to do anything. I've talked about this before. I was very sexually hesitant and it took me a while to get over it. The fact that a girl was this willing to put herself in that position and I didn't do anything with it is mental to me looking at it now, you know? But I was in that weird zone where I would befriend girls with a hope of it turning into something. And when you do that, you're always kind of stuck in this weird middle ground of not knowing whether it's going to go anywhere or it's not going to go anywhere. But underline this with, I was just too shit scared to do anything. In second year, I decided to really focus on making friends and being social, as that had been the biggest disaster of my first year. I also managed to fix my mental health, my depression, my anxiety to a decent degree towards the end of first year. So I didn't really have to worry about that too much in second year. I moved into another accommodation and made really good friends with the guys who lived around me. Like, it was a much healthier group of people. We all wanted each other to succeed. They weren't negative like my first year flatmates had been. And just generally, I had a much better social life in the new accommodation, which was much more involved. Like, everyone was involved in activities. Everyone was going out all the time. They were also all first years, so less cliquey. They all wanted to make friends. I basically, as a second year, gone into the first year accommodation. And that's really good to have basically a second go at being in that freshman year. And this is where I really blossomed socially. But once again, like, didn't know what to do with girls, and I didn't know what to do with girls. Like, I just didn't know. And I didn't have enough courage to just try things and see how it went. That's not the biggest difference now. The biggest difference between me then and me now is I have the courage to just try shit, just say shit to girls and see how it goes. That's like the best thing you can do for yourself if you're inexperienced, is give yourself the freedom to just suck at it, to experiment, to see what you want, to just say stuff to girls that you're afraid to say. Like, tell girls that you're friends with that you like them. Tell girls that you've never met before that you like them, you know? Try and progress stuff beyond just you know a girl and you guys have polite conversation. Because that's all I was getting. That's the only way I was getting. And also, I was doing dumb shit like making friends with girls who had boyfriends and then getting really upset that they weren't with me. Oh, God. I don't like looking back at how pathetic I was at university. It's really hard for me to look back at some of the behavior that I used to run. Like, there's like 3 or 4 girls I can think of where I tried the whole be her friend route and hope it goes somewhere, which is just like the worst thing to do ever. I remember like something the Good Looking Loser wrote, where he was like, when you're at college, you feel like everyone's having these giant fun sex parties and you're the only one not invited. That's what he said, because I think he had quite like an unsuccessful time at college as well, even though he was insanely good looking. And he went to loads of party colleges as well, but he spent most of his time in the gym not talking to girls, in the same way that I spent most of my time trying to be everyone's friend but not trying to sleep with girls. I did have a lot of shame about my virginity at college. Like, I didn't tell anyone. I think it would have been a lot better looking back if I'd been more open about that. Like, I've been open about my experience with girls to my mates. They could have probably helped me a little bit. Like, if I'd asked my friends who all got laid, like, how do you actually get laid? Like, give me the breakdown steps of what you do, like, exactly, and I will copy it. That would have been a lot better than what I was doing, which was hiding all that stuff and just pretending and just lying about everything and pretending that I get laid or pretending that I got girls. And obviously these friends were with me for like 2 years. They were going to know that like I didn't get anything. They knew that I was weirdly scared of girls. Like, girls would come up to me in clubs occasionally, not very often, but occasionally a girl would like drunkenly come up to me in a club and I would basically like push her away and run off. And that, yeah, my friends saw that happen. So they knew there was something like, you know, weird up, but they never pressed because they're lovely people, I guess. In second year, the same thing happened as happened in first year with girls. I ended up almost having one of those befriend a girl until something happens thing actually pay off, because I ended up with this girl who was visiting from Canada. Sorry, she was studying in the UK from Canada, and she didn't have a lot of friends. We met through our seminar group for history, and yeah, she was really into me, and we got drunk together a couple of times. And one of those times, she was basically really far away from where she lived. I think it was like an hour, and the buses weren't running. So she was like, "Can I stay at yours?" So we twosed up in a bed together, and she straight up asked me, "She's like, do you want to do anything?" And I exited that situation by saying, "You're too drunk," and then let her go. Okay. Now she was too drunk. This was actually very valid, but that doesn't mean she wasn't interested and I couldn't have done something else another time. This was like, once again, me running away from the situation. I made the right call in that one situation, but it was pretty clear she was into me. I liked her. Would have been pretty easy for me if I'd known, or if I wasn't afraid to actually have done something. And this is my big realization for looking back at college, is that I was scared of all of these things that I was meant to be doing. This whole like sex life, the big first relationships you have, like, you know, the crazy partying lifestyle that you were meant to have at college. I was too scared to actually go and get it. Even though I kind of flirted around the edges, like I made friends with people who were trying to live that lifestyle and having more success, I was skirting around the edges, too afraid to jump in, you know, that was the problem. And looking back, I know that if I just got through the fear on one occasion, it would have made everything a lot easier. So my big lesson just from those first 2 years is face fear and do the shit anyway. Andy talks about this all the time. It doesn't matter that you feel afraid. It doesn't matter that you feel the anxiety. You feel that and you do it anyway. You do the cold approaches. You tell girls that you're friends with that you actually have feelings for them. You just blurt it out like an autistic person. Just blurt out exactly how you feel, because then at least you've done it. It doesn't matter how smooth you are. You just have to, you know, cut through that fear and say to someone what you want to say to them, to try and, you know, ask for what you want. Try and ask for what you want, and maybe sometimes you'll get it. We're going to go on to third year. So my final year at uni, still a virgin, very successful socially, I guess now, though. I had cool friends. I was living with cool friends. We were going out to clubs like twice a week, and we had a big group of everyone that I knew from first year, from second year even. And yeah, we were like, not like obviously like big names, like everyone knew us, but like I knew a lot of people who went out. I knew a lot of people that I enjoyed hanging out with. I would always run into people. Whenever I went out, even if I went out alone, I would run into people, you know? I was still a virgin. I was still unsuccessful with girls without having actually really tried that hard. So I can't put it down to like, you know, I can't put it down to bad luck. I didn't try. And when the opportunities arises, I didn't take them. But in third year, I did find Good Looking Loser. I did find that site around halfway through my third year, actually, because I was getting kind of frustrated about my lack of, you know, opportunity. Interestingly, I ran into that girl from first year again, the one who like put herself in my bed and didn't leave. I ended up going back to hers in third year and once again didn't do anything. So those problems were still around in third year. But because I found Good Looking Loser, I started to really see more of the pathway forward. I started seeing like how you could play the numbers game. I started seeing how you could use online dating. There were methods of getting laid that weren't make friends with a girl and then hope something happens. Weird, unsuccessful social game wasn't going to be my only way forward. I still didn't get laid in third year of uni, but I started to see a pathway. Now, the issue here is I think a lot of guys think that college and university might be their last chance at these kind of wild years. I don't see it that way. My second big lesson of this whole thing is you can succeed with things later on in life. I found Good Looking Loser in my third year of uni, but there wasn't enough time for me to get over my sexual hesitancy, to get through my fear. I still had to get really basic newbie experience. So even if I'd speed run like the AA program and speed run getting laid, I still wouldn't have had a lot of time left at college to do that wild shit. And spoilers, I delayed doing the Good Looking Loser stuff for another 3 years. So I just wasn't ready at 21 either. You can do all of this stuff, the stuff that you're wanting to do at college, the stuff that you think you're only going to be able to do in your college years later on in life. I'm an example of this. My big dating years came between 26 and 28. Andy's a good example of this. His biggest dating years came from 30 to, I believe, 33. Good Looking Loser himself, he was late 20s. Caleb Jones, Black Dragon, I believe he got divorced at like 35. And his biggest years in terms of his dating were 35 to 40. Just because you didn't have the dating life you wanted at college doesn't mean you can't have it at all. Doesn't mean you can't take some time out to focus on this and get wild, crazy memories. I went traveling when I was 24 and I basically got to have the hardcore partying years all over again from 24 to 26. I had all this money saved up, so I just went round to loads of hostels in Australia and I had the best fucking time of my life. And at this time, I was able to actually figure out Night Game. I was able to go and see Andy and figure out Cold Approach and online dating. It's not the end of the world if you don't do this shit when you're young. It's just easier for a lot of guys to do this shit when they're younger, you know, because you have energy and you have youthful looks and you have the ability to drink till 6 a.m. and not want to kill yourself 3 days later. It's just considered easier for younger guys to have those years, and it's considered harder to find time when you're making money later on to then go and do all that stuff. But it's perfectly possible. It's perfectly possible, especially for guys who are good. You know, some of us who are good at making money, you can make enough money to give yourself enough time off to focus on this. So my big lesson is you don't have to succeed with this shit at college. Don't put all this pressure on yourself that you need to get your entire sex life handled between 18 and 21. That's absolute nonsense. I think most guys will peak in their dating lives in their late 20s, if I'm being honest. If you haven't already, you know, found, if you're monogamous and you find a girl that you want to be with forever, fair enough. But if you're still single in your late 20s, that's a fantastic time to start getting serious about dating. So we've crossed over into that whole point of you're not too old. It's hilarious to Andy when he gets guys who are like 25 saying, am I too old to succeed at this? Fuck no. You also get guys in their mid-30s, and the answer is still fuck no as well, by the way. The last thing I wanted to say, was this strictly a negative? Like, Andy and I like to look at things and stories that guys tell themselves. Like, the story I'm telling myself is that my college time was a disaster. I literally said my first year was actually a disaster. Is it possible to look back at this and flip it into a positive, so that I'm not creating this story of like that time of my life was some sort of black hole? And I can see positives. Like, I wouldn't have been so driven to improve myself in my 20s. I've gone far beyond a lot of my friends in terms of my dating life, in terms of what I've achieved. I've gone far beyond my friends in self-improvement because of, I guess, some of the insecurities that came out of not succeeding at university in these ways. The other stuff is, I did do some stuff at college and university, like becoming good at making friends with people. I did do that at university to some degree. I massively improved that when I went traveling alone, but the seeds of my ability to make friends and meet new people was from this, you know, taking it seriously in my second year of uni after my first year had been, you know, poor in that regard. I've also said I don't like guys, you know, focusing on past hypotheticals. I have fantasized before about, you know, having a time machine and being able to go back to the beginning of my first year of uni and just relive and do it again, you know, with the tenants from Good Looking Loser and Andy and just knowing all that stuff. And I think that's, you know, completely wasted time. You don't want to be spending your time focusing on hypothetical timelines that don't exist. You know, you're just wasting time and energy, and going back in my mind and thinking like, what would I have done in this situation had I known, is not helpful. And I hope that guys understand from what I've said, especially about you can succeed in this shit at any time of your life, and the only thing you really need to know is to push through your fear that was holding you back. That I hope guys can move forward and, you know, put their college years, if they were a disappointment to you, I want you to be able to put that to bed. I want you to succeed so hard now that you can put that stuff to bed. That's really what I want. So hopefully this has helped some guys out there. We've reached the end of the video. Andy and I offer a group coaching product that will be linked in the description below. Andy very much helped me fix my life, change everything about my dating life especially, helped me get over a massive heartbreak, helped me be a more peaceful, happy person, helped me get over the insecurities that had come from this stint at college. And now I'm happy to be doing the same thing for his clients as well. So me and him coach together in this group. You also get access to a video library for stuff we don't release anywhere else, and a Discord where you can hang out with all the guys who've been in the program before. If you're interested in that, check out the details below. I hope to see you inside. Peace till next time.